Hey, it's Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And today I have one of our favorite coaches, a frequent visitor. I think you might as well just take over this podcast, Lori. You're
I
here
was
all the time.
telling others recently, I think I have to take a pause so we don't overwhelm or underwhelm other feedback.
And so, Lori, welcome to the podcast. So we have Lori Pulvermacher with us today. And Lori and I were having a conversation about three ways that we're seeing law firms kind of like wreck their practices, wreck their teams, causing a lot of stress. And I asked Lori to come and talk to us about using the process for onboarding as a competitive advantage. And what are the 7 essential tips or strategies that she's going to share with us on how to improve the onboarding process? But before we get there, I want to kind of back up, Lori,
Mhm.
because you and I had this conversation, and it's something I keep seeing, you keep seeing that well, we sometimes think of onboarding as its own strategic objective, but the question for you and I is why? Why? What are we seeing in the marketplace? What are we seeing in law firms? What are we seeing happening to teams
Mhm.
due to failed onboarding? So I've got one. I know you've got a couple. What do you see from your perspective, coaching and advising law firms? What's happening in the trenches?
Yeah, absolutely. We work with so many law firms, and a big piece of the work that we're doing is supporting them in scalability. And that becomes very difficult without human resources to be able to leverage. And so when we aren't hiring effectively, when we can't retain that talent, we see significant turnover, certainly. It becomes almost a revolving door. And that's a term that's been used by some of the firms that I've been working with lately on and trying to correct this issue. And that the turnover, the revolving door isn't just a matter of, the hired somebody, now they're gone, now I'm hiring someone else, but it eats away at profitability, it eats away at productivity, and it eats away at the ability to move the needle forward with that scalability or with the objectives.
So this is what Rose Hutchinson and I've talked about this in her episode, which is we'd really like you to hire way before you need someone. And most law firms are hiring while the house is on fire.
Right.
And
And that,
they're handing someone a bucket and they're like, so just start throwing water. There's no water in the bucket. I don't care. Just start doing something.
right.
And that becomes part of the challenge. So talk to me about strategy two.
So strategy two would be to really build out a 90-day plan then. So this is forcing you to go through the specifics about what are the key elements that I have to consider to effectively onboard and integrate this individual. What are the benchmarks, the milestones? What do I want, them to be able to accomplish? And it's essentially you're asking yourself, what does success look like? If I hire a new individual within 30 days, what is success? Within 60 days, within 90 days. We use 90 days because it's typically a probationary period where we are still evaluating the correct or right fit of this individual. And then likewise, they may be doing the same with you. So while we try to ensure that we're getting the best fit in the interviewing and hiring process, a lot is revealed after that. And so we can ensure that we're not, delaying the ability for them to have impact by having very clear benchmarks, milestones, and what we want them to be able to take on. Some of this is how autonomous or how self-managing they are in some of these activities after a period of time. But this says, I'm going to shape what day one looks like, what week one looks like, and try to provide as much specificity. And I'm going through and identifying where there's shadowing opportunities, what are the team building opportunities, what are the specific areas of training that I need them to complete as well. So this well-structured onboarding process, again, I'm sure there's people listening that go, "Oh, that sounds horrible."
That
Sounds like
sounds like work, Lori. That sounds
a
like work. I'm just
lot
gonna
of
say that
work.
sounds like
Who
work.
is going to do
Sounds like
this?
work.
But it really is a vital investment in your firm's future and the success of this new hire. And also so that your your attorneys, maybe your attorneys, but your hires feel empowered, supported, and ready to contribute on from day one.
Let's talk about strategy 6, because I think this is a critical one. It connects so powerfully to strategy 5.
Yeah, and that's really the delegation. Delegation has to be in the leadership tool belt that we are pulling from and utilizing, because again, this is one of the primary reasons onboarding, training, and nurturing the team is neglected is because it has to fall to one person or it has to fall to the person that everything else has already fallen to. And it's just one more thing I have to do. And of the things I have to do, it's not the most important. I would argue that this is the most important work that you can do. To support your team. But if you are better suited in different areas of your practice and being the accountability partner, the mentor, or the manager of your team is not your best skill set or where your talents are best put for your business, then delegate this and seek out the additional staff acquisitions that you may need, or leverage the opportunity for your existing team to support onboarding, training, and implementation. And again, this is going to help with that more of a congealed feeling of amongst the team members as well when they're working strategically together.
If you're looking at a firm and they've got, let's just say, 4 to 6 team members, how much time per week would you recommend be set aside for invested in for ongoing training? So an average week, let's just say 40 hours. How much time would you say I'd like to see this law firm investing in firm-wide training X many hours or X hour?
Right.
Or what would you like to see? What would be ideal for you?
So there's actually, I don't have the stat or the reference, but in work that I did previously, we had information that indicated there's different roles that you play when you're a firm or business owner, and so we refer to it as these different hats that you wear, and there's different hats. And one of those is the trainer role, one of those is the manager role, one of those is the supervisor role. It sounds like those are all kind of just the same thing, but with different titles, but they're very different classifications of the type of work and what you're looking for and what you're measuring. And in the training role, it's a significant amount of time in the infancy of that onboarding. And the reality of it is this gets neglected. I've got attorneys who have brought on new hires while they're in the midst of a trial. They brought on new hires when they're leaving or won't be there because they're off on vacation and haven't given the thought to how much invested time. And I know it seems, crazy to think you're going to block days off on your calendar, but in the infancy, you have to have dedicated time. This is
Okay.
most important work, right?